Today we're going to talk about how to make pinch pot fish. You can make them one of two ways. We have this way where the opening is right here for the mouth. We also have a second way where the opening is on the bottom. It's up to you to choose which kind you'd like to make. When you're ready to begin, we're going to start by making a pinch pot. So I'm going to just get a cube of clay here, and the first thing I'm going to do is just sort of work it into a ball here. So I'm getting rid of these corners. It doesn't need to be perfect. That's just how I like to start. And then I'm going to take my thumb and stick it straight down. I'm going to be very careful that I'm not putting my thumb to the side like this. It should be going straight in. And I go almost all the way down to the canvas. So it becomes sort of this thumb lollipop here. What I like to do then is I sort of like to work it around my thumb until it becomes a little bit more round again. And then what I'm going to start to do afterwards is start to pinch it. And I'm not going to pinch like this because if I pinch like this, it's going to sort of put these holes in the side. I want to pinch using the whole sides of my fingers. So I'm going to pinch and turn, and pinch and turn, pinch and turn, pinch and turn. And what you'll notice is that as I'm pinching and turning, the hole here is getting larger. So I'm going to continue to do that. And if I see any large bumps as I'm pinching, I'm going to try to sort of pinch those down. And then I also want the top to be rounded here. So I'm going to be putting my thumbs on the inside and sort of smoothing down the top into more of a rounded shape. And the last thing I want to pay attention to is the width of this outside right here. It shouldn't get too skinny. If it gets anything skinnier than about my pinky, then it might become fragile and it could break. So I want to make sure that it doesn't get too thin. And as I look around, it should be pretty similar all the way around, the width of it. And if you notice there's a spot that's a little bit thicker, then we're just going to press down until it's about the same thickness as the other parts. And then what I like to do is just put it down upside down and cup my hands around it and press down a little bit just to make the bottoms a little bit flatter here. All right. Once I'm at this step, I can decide which way I'd like it to be. If I'd like the hole to be on the bottom like this, or if I want the hole to become the mouth. I think for myself, I'm going to make the hole become the mouth here. So what I'm going to do is just put my hands around and just sort of start to squeeze it together to create my fish's lips here. And I think for this one, it might be a little bit more closed than my other fish. I left the mouth open a little bit more. I do want to keep an opening to the inside so that it can dry out. And then once I have sort of the shape that I want here, then I can start to smooth out the sides just a little bit. So I'm using my fingers here to sort of smooth it out a bit. All right. And now that I've got a pretty good shape, I can start thinking about how I want to attach the different features, the eyes, the fins, the gills, everything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the eyes. So for the eyes, I'm going to get these small pieces of clay. I'm going to roll it into a ball and just sort of press down against my canvas to create sort of a rounded shape. And before I attach it, I'm going to make my second one because I want them to be the same size. And sometimes when I make my eyes, one ends up being bigger than the other. So if one ends up being much bigger than the other, then you can remake them. Take a little piece off, roll it back up into a ball, and then squish it down again. When our two pieces are about the same size, then we can talk about attaching them. Now there are 3 steps to attach pieces of clay together. And for us, we use 3 S's. That is going to be score, which just means we're lightly going to scratch the surface. And I'll also scratch where I plan to attach it. It's really important that I do that step. And once both pieces are scratched, I do my next step, which is slip. And slip is just a clay water mixture, and it sort of acts like glue. So I put my slip on both parts where I scratched the surface, and then the last step is to stick it together. So to stick it, I'm not just putting it down and leaving it, I'm actually sort of pressing it into that spot a little bit and smoothing it out to make sure that it really sticks there well. And then once I have that piece attached, I can go ahead and do the eye and the rest of his body parts here. Now to make the fins of my fish, I'm going to need to make slabs. So what I'm going to do is just take a hunk of clay here and use the palm of my hand to press it against the canvas to create a flat piece. So that's what it looks like. And then all I have to do really is carve out the size and the shape that I want. So for his fin on top, I think I'm going to make it kind of large. And I'm just going to make a curved line here because his body is curved and I want it to be able to fit. So it should be able to curve around. And then I just decide the shape that I want. So I kind of like this shape here. And then I check to see if it fits. And once it does, then again, I've got to do my steps for scoring, slipping, and sticking. I'm going to do the exact same thing with his little fins down here and his tail as well. When we're finished with that whole process, we've really attached everything well, making sure that it's staying on, then we can impress some objects. Impressing objects just means that we're going to take different tools and press them into the side. So if you look at this one, I used a round object to make these circles. In this one, I used a popsicle stick to make these little scales. And what I'm going to do first for this one is I'm going to create some eyes. So I'm actually going to use the back of a pencil, and I'm just going to press it in lightly towards the bottom of this one. You can decide where you want the eyes on yours. I just press in a little bit lightly, and you might notice also that I'm twisting my pencil a little bit. That just helps it not to stick. And then my wooden dowel has a rounded end here. So I'm going to use the rounded end to put a little dot right in the middle of each eye. Like that. And then I can decide how I want to decorate my fish. So I think for his little fins and his tail, I might want to put these little lines. So I'm very lightly going to put these lines here all along his tail. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And then I'm going to use other objects to put details in here. So I might actually use something a little bit different. So for this one, I might use this button and then press it into the side of the fish just lightly, because I don't want to make too big of an indent. And you can see a little bit that little mark that it put there. And I think I want to put one more on the other side. It's kind of tough to see. Okay, and then maybe around it, maybe I'll use a pen. This pen here has sort of this little mark on the bottom. I like that. I like to use everyday objects and impressing into my clay here. And I'm just going to put these little marks maybe around it. So it's up to you how you want to decorate your fish. And then when you're finished with everything, then we can set it to the side so that it can dry fully for our kiln.